Everybody's very serious now. Let's see. Hope everybody's doing well. All this noise. Gotta get the computer started. Get everybody ready. We got our fireplace going. I don't know if they can see the fireplace. Let's see here.
It's fun. Yeah, that's
Wow,
on
it
it.
is, yeah. I don't think the camera can see it. Let's see here. Let's see. Wait for the computer to load up. Everyone's joining us right now while we wait for the laptop to get organized.
In the land of the good internets.
Actually, what we need to do is you to back up a little bit.
Okay.
Hang on. Hello, everybody. We're gonna just do this just a little bit. And back up a little bit. Good. Just so our fireplace is visible.
Is he okay still? I'm in the picture more or
Deacon
less.
Guillermo needs to be here with the fireplace. All right. All right.
I have my coffee here.
Exactly.
I need my coffee.
Let's see. Facebook. Get everybody
Red
going
tree
here.
on the cow.
And then one more. YouTube. Okay.
I think you've been spoiled, Kim. You got this good food and good alcohol in Spain.
All right. Let's go here. Get this going. Hello. Good evening, Suzette. Joy. Joy says, "Nice fake fire." Hi, Joy. we have it's our fireside chat, so we'd have a fire. Joan says, "Good evening," and let's see here. Let's go over here to what we got going on over here. We have, wait for it. Mary says, "Good evening, fathers and deacon." David says, "Hi, Father." Patricia, good to see the good fathers. Bonnie says, "Hi, fathers and deacon." And Anne Marie says, "How excited are we all to have the crying babies back in church?" We are excited. We're getting ready for it. This is our last week of the exile in the desert. So hello to Mary and Megan and Lori and Stefan. Father Stefan Sarzinski. Beth Schlumber
Nice.
here. Tess is here. Patricia says, "How will Bishop Burbage's update affect our parish?" Well, we will know that, Patricia, on Tuesday. There's one more meeting
Oh, okay.
of the Bishop's Task Force tomorrow. And then he'll put out some directives for the diocese on Tuesday. So we will see. So we say hi to Mary and Joan, Lori, Tess, Anna Marie, Megan, Beth, Patricia, Father Starzinski, David, other Patricia, Anthony, Andreas. So here we go. Tess says, "This is a nice surprise. Good evening, fathers and deacon." Bonnie, how come the deacon is in the corner? Because we were trying to social distance, and I keep telling him to move forward. Move forward, deacon.
The
So
thing
you
is,
look.
I don't want to cover the fire.
You're okay. You can keep coming. It's
Because
okay.
he's the most important person, that's why.
He's not in the naughty corner. You can come way forward. It's okay. You can come way forward. And for those who want to know, the flavor tonight is limoncello, LaCroix. I didn't know there was such a thing, but a wonderful parishioner donated some LaCroix the other day. It includes the limoncello flavor.
Inquiring minds want to know, Father. That's really important, you know.
And it's very important. Totally good. So anyway, so we're all excited because the bishop announced the other day that on following the governor's directives as far as public health, that phase 1 in Virginia starts on May 15th, and that churches can be open at 50% capacity. So that is a great thing. We thought we were going to go from like maybe 10 to 50. 50% is awesome. So we're figuring out, we've already started some of the minds of Sacred Heart working on some ideas of how we can do this. I think there's a way we can do it. And we're going to just wait for the final updates from the bishop. But I'm thinking the church holds, in theory, 850 people. So if you're at 50% capacity, that means in theory you're looking at maybe 400 people there. Muldowney Hall downstairs holds about 300 people capacity. So if you're at 50%, it's about 150. And then the narthex, the entrance area of the church, holds about
Maybe
160.
That many.
So in theory, 80 people. But I mean, if you were looking at maybe 50 people in the narthex, maybe about 350, 400 people in the church, and then maybe another 100, 150 downstairs, that would be quite doable. And then as another backup option to that is if when people come, if those things are at capacity, which I don't think the first couple weeks it's going to be, people could be in their cars and we can transmit the mass on a radio frequency, and also people could watch on their phones. We'll be streaming it, so that perhaps the way it'll work out, I'm thinking, again, we'll get final updates early this week, that maybe we'd be looking at doing communion after mass. So someone would go to mass either in the church or in the narthex or downstairs or in their car even, and then afterwards we can distribute Holy Communion. So all that's kind of exciting, and Anna is here, Anna Fitzpatrick, the queen of our Hispanic ministry. David says, we're jealous out here in California. Well, yeah, let's see what happens. We're praying for you. Diana Mann is here, one of our great nurses. Laura Walker's here. Lynn Griesmer, Chris Cooper, Bernadette, Carolyn, Kathy Cupper. Kathy goes way back to my first assignment at the cathedral.
Oh, wow.
So, Father, how's your week been? Anything exciting going on? Well, how's the M37? Got a fuel pump. What's up?
Well, the M37, it's a little antiquated, so the fuel pump, inquiring minds want to know, has a dual diaphragm in it, so part of it pumps fuel up to the carburetor, but then part of it on the top, you run the vacuum off it for the wipers. So
Okay.
older cars used to have vacuum wipers. They haven't had that for years.
My old Nash Rambler American had, when it was raining, if you accelerated,
Yes.
the wiper stopped.
That's
crazy.
very common among older cars. The vacuum drops, and so the wipers don't work as well. But hopefully, I've had some problems starting it. I'm hoping this is going to fix it. We pulled the carburetor, kind of rebuilt the carb. I'm going to try this new fuel pump. If it starts up consistently after that, then that fixes the problem. If not, then we have to look elsewhere. But it's like anything else. When you get a little old and run down, you need some maintenance.
Yeah, I got a couple of parts. It's good. Deacon, how about you? You're looking forward to. So now the good word, right, is that if we're ready on May 15th, we can be at 50% capacity for churches. What does that mean for June 6th? No.
Yeah, it's not official yet, but you're right. I mean, if we reopen churches, then that means that, God willing, we're going to be able to get ordained. We don't know how it's going to look like, because we might just be able to invite a few people.
Okay.
But
But it sounds like, I don't want to interject too many opinions, but it sounds like if we're talking at least say 50%, you could have your first solemn mass and have more than just your parents and a few friends there.
Yeah.
So that would be nice.
Let's see, we got more comments here. Bob says, can you socially distance at 50%, or will you need less to maintain 6-foot distancing between families? I think, Bob, that is a good question, because in theory, if we had every other pew blocked off and everyone was packed in, that would be 50%. But I think with families and then some distancing between families and couples and individuals, there's going to be a little bit even more reduced capacity. But it's a start. And then I think too, with overflow seating, I thought about, have ruled this out, the possibility we could have overflow seating in the gym if we did a feed that was being broadcast in there. Just trying to get people to come over from the gym afterwards for communion. But also to people sit in their cars, that might be another way.
Father, don't forget, I know you know this obviously, but with the elderly and the sick, those who may already
Yes,
have
right.
pre-existing conditions or lung issues or whatever kind of issues, their obligation is still lifted. So they're not required, if you have serious medical issues or over 60, to go to Mass. And that will change ultimately too in the future.
Eventually, right. But I think just like the
But I think for
stage,
now, the first phase, I think this was a good first step. I think Bishop Burbidge is extremely happy about this. I think he felt bad about closing the churches. I think he was generally concerned and wanted to try to do the right thing. And I think he's probably elated about this. I think he's probably very happy.
I think everybody's kind of happy, because on one level, I thought we were going to go from 10 people to 50 people, and I was going to try to figure out how do you pick 50 people to go to Mass. So this is going to be a lot better than 50 people. But David says, our church in California has done a phenomenal job of putting everything online. Thank you for putting this online. It's great to know what is going on in other states. Yes, I mean, I think the online services have been good too. I mean, it's not a replacement, but it's something. Christina, my sister, is here. Woohoo! Happy Mother's Day in advance to my mom and to Christina
Yes, all mothers.
and all our moms. Lori says, so glad he got his fun car. Great hobby. Now, Leon, this is great. Leon, who we went to grade school together. And Leon, I think we were together, from 4th grade through 6th grade. I don't know if we went through 8th grade together. And he says, one day you three are going to change the seating order and throw everyone into a tizzy. Anyway, so I'll be over there and we'll change everything. That's right, we should do that for next week. That'll be good. Chris is here. Lynn says, I applaud your efforts at problem solving to restore masses. Yes, I don't know, well, I know it's going to be harder. Opening up is going to be harder than closing. I mean, it was bad enough to say can't come, but then to figure out stages of letting people in. And then too, we're going to have to figure out how we clean in between the masses.
Yes.
So I think once a month we have the Latin Mass. I think what we'll do is we might just do the Latin Mass every week, so we'll have 6 Mass options. We probably the 7:30, 9:15, 11:15, the Latin, the Spanish, and then the 5:30 in the evening. And if you have the overflow outside, I mean, that really increases capacity for 6 Masses a day. We have the Vigil Mass Saturday night. And then 2, for the near future, the immediate future, people's obligation to go to Mass on Sunday will still be lifted, especially as Father said, for elderly, people in vulnerable population groups, compromised immune system. So the other option is people to come to daily Mass during the week.
Yes.
Just tell people, come during the week, and you're going to go to Mass, receive our Lord in the Eucharist, and then when things really get gangbusters later on in the summer, we can go whole hog. So, Mary's here. Deacon, we never let you talk. Any comments? What are your thoughts about reopening?
No, I'm just really happy because I've been talking to a lot of people from all over the diocese, and a lot of them were struggling. And and I also knew the other side of the story. I knew that the priests were struggling and the bishop. So it was just great. The other day I ran into a parishioner when I was reposing the Blessed Sacrament.
Yeah.
And she was telling me how much she misses church. So I told her, well, the priest and I also miss you. I mean, I was trying to reassure her that, it's also a hard time for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Get rid of the people. Let's see. Bob says, Nash Rambler. I thought I was the only one who remembered those. No, Bob, my grandfather, my German grandfather, my Opa, his first car when he moved, or one of his first cars, when he moved to America from Germany in 1968, was his Nash Rambler American, and then it got passed around the family. And then when I was like a sophomore or a junior in high school, I got that car. We got it repainted, and it was so cool. I kind of wish I'd hung on to it, but it got passed along some more, so yeah.
Probably
Anyways.
worth some money these days.
Yeah, no kidding. Bonnie says, I'm already tearing up at the thought of Mass in my father's house. Absolutely, Bonnie. It's going to be great. I think when people get back, people are going to be really happy to be back praying and with our Lord. Mario's here. Matt Cooper's here. Hi, Matt. Hope the Coopers are doing well. Anne Marie says, isn't everyone still dispensed for now? Yes. Everyone, the dispensation's in place. I don't know how they're going to lift the dispensation until we get to the point where, Mass attendance is sort of more regular, or, there's less of a fear about the virus. And also, maybe he might make a longer dispensation for people over 60, or people who have any kind of health problems. I don't know. So, Albert's here. Anthony says, can you reserve a section just for the senior citizen parishioners? I think that's going to be a challenge. I thought about it because, and we've talked about different options, because the vulnerable population group are the senior citizens. They're one of them. We thought about, and we haven't ruled it out, grocery stores, Walmart, all have an early Mass. They have early shopping time for seniors where they can go just them. So I don't know whether we should just say like the early Mass on Sunday is just for seniors. It just gets a little bit tricky because the difficulty we face is how do you get the word out consistently to everybody? We can do a mailing, we can do emails, we can do Facebook things. You can do so much to try to get the word out, but if someone doesn't get the word and they show up and you say, oh, I'm sorry, you can't come to Mass because you're a senior. You're not a senior, so.
That's the last thing you want is at this point to have to turn people away, and no matter what we try, it may not be perfect.
No, it's not going to be perfect.
It's not going to be perfect, so we have to ask people to be very patient and very charitable.
Yeah.
And that's probably not gonna be easy the first several weeks, but
I think overall the people will work, because I think people, I don't know, I've gotten, my feedback from people has been good. I think people have been really positive about all the efforts and
absolutely.
stuff. Let's see, but yes, I think that's a good section. The problem is like, if you reserve just a section for one group, but someone else in the other part of the room is coughing, or who knows, brings the virus, how do you know whether they're really protected? I don't know whether just the best idea would be just one mask. So we'll see what the bishop guides us, if there's any other practical considerations people give us. Alex is here, Kelly Kaiser's here, Frank's
Nice.
here. Diane says, you're gonna have to space the masses further apart, the cleaning is intense. Well, Diana, the problem with that is yes and no. There's only so much time in the day, because we already do basically always 5 masses, and if we had a 6th mass, there really isn't too much more time. We could tweak it a bit, but there's, when you start, when you got 7:30, 9:15, 11:15, 12:45, 2:30, that ends at 3:30, the next one's at 5:30. So you basically have maybe an hour or 15 minutes to wiggle around with. So you could maybe say 7:30 and 9:30 and 11:30 and 1 o'clock and 2:45, it's pretty tight, so.
Well, Father, I think you had also mentioned that at least until we get back to a more regular schedule and, probably shorter homilies, very, very brief homilies,
Sure.
and just try to get through Mass.
Right.
So that people can ultimately receive communion too.
That's the other point too, is that, to be honest with you, Mass is gonna be shorter, and that, we'll be looking at, a tighter Mass with more time in between, and the cleaning schedule we have to figure out. At Sacred Heart, we can make some adjustments to do cleaning, but the challenge that the bishop faces and the diocese faces is there's not a one-size-fits-all model for every parish.
Right.
Most parishes don't have full-time cleaning crews. They don't have the staff to do this, or the funds, or the supplies. So, I think on some level, when you go to Walmart or you go to CVS, you're not being followed around by a cleaning machine, and I think the dilemma here is a dilemma between the practice of the faith versus centralized planning. I think on some level, people who are vulnerable are going to have to say, I can't endanger my health, I need to pray at home. Other people who are younger are going to get exposed, and we're going to have to take very good, reasonable precautions to clean. But at the end of the day, it seems like the church and other places like this are being held to a higher standard than what's going on at Walmart. No one's going around Walmart disinfecting every time in between shoppers. There's some of it, but
The other thought, this is interesting, and I don't know if the bishop said anything about this, Father, but you don't want to not encourage people to come, but what about newborns? Their immune system is not fully developed, so we want to make sure.
Yeah, kids, I think, are generally speaking, someone said the volume's low. Let me see if I can figure this out.
I think especially with the newborns, they could be susceptible, so you want
Right.
the parents to use good prudence and judgment there also, I think.
Yeah. Let's see here. Lori says, okay, who else we got here? Emily joined us, Isaac joined us, Jackie's here, Tamby. Lori says, kind of makes sense to reserve some space for walk-in, offline older folks. What do you mean by that, Lori? I'm not sure what you mean. Volume tonight is low for me, not sure why. I turned up our volume, check out yours, I don't know. Do you have a cry room? Other info I've seen is to close those off because of limited airflow there. We don't really have a cry room. Deacon Gomez from Holy Families here. Hello.
Oh, nice. Do you know Deacon?
I think so. I think I
He's
went
a great
into
guy,
it once, yeah.
Okay,
Because I went
I
to
don't know
mass
him.
there and
And then Lori says, plus cleaning issues. Claire says, we are depressed. What will even be left when Mass is start again? Well, Masses are going to start again on the 15th, so I don't know exactly. Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna have Masses again. I think too, as a general rule, I think it's just going to open up more, because I think what's going to happen is people have understood on some level. Okay, in theory, the problem was this virus. We weren't sure how it's transmitted. We're trying to protect people. We're trying to protect group settings. But then at the same time too, if people who are white collar jobs or who work for the government, or who are lobbyists, or who have, you know, the ability to work from home, that's one thing. But blue collar jobs, normal people, they need to go to work. And I think what's gonna happen over the course of the next couple of weeks, as this starts to open up, is people are gonna get out. So you're gonna say like mid-May to the end of May, and then into June, things are gonna start ramping up. And I think by the time we get in July, you know, I mean, between people getting out, going to eat, family events, traveling, you know, life picking up again, people have to readjust their summers because their vacation plans have had to change or whatever.
Yeah.
I tend to think it's gonna keep going. I think people are just gonna keep I mean, at first I think people will be afraid. I think people, you know, who are older or vulnerable are probably gonna stay home. But I think they're gonna know that, you know, life is picking up again.
I kind of assume, I think you would know better, Father, maybe the deacon would have some input too. I kind of assume that, you know, the bishop will continue to, you know, inform us or, you know, make announcements. Updates, you know, as conditions change, or as the governor makes his own decisions, you know, so it's not a one-time thing or one size fits all.
No, and I think too, again, this is my opinion, you can throw it up. You know, it seems to me that the broad camps right now are between people who are looking at this as a health crisis and who are trying to figure out how do you deal with public health. So people who work in nursing, medicine, who are centralized administrators, public policy people, they're looking at like big groups of people, transmission, how do we reduce this, masks, cleaning. These are all very good things.
Absolutely.
And at the same time too, you know, and I mean, I've talked to people who are genuinely, authentically concerned about the type of virus this is and how this affects people, and this is their level of concern. It's not a desire, from what I've talked to people, of wanting to bend the knee to the government or, oh, if you tell us to jump, how high? Right. It's been more like, this is a genuine concern. But again, part of it is it's always in the mode of the recipient. You know, if my fear, and it's legitimate, right? The modern state is getting to be more and more all-powerful, and we're being told by experts what to do, and it seems like does the church just give in and, you know, and do all this. But I mean, you know, I'm not Bishop Burbage's best friend. I don't have his ear all the time. But, you know, Bishop Burbage has consistently communicated in a wide variety of things that he's genuinely concerned about people's health. Like talking to Deacon about the seminarians, talking about the discussions that we've had with his task force, what he has told to the pastors, what he's communicated. You know, he wants to get churches open, and he wants to get us back in there. And he's not imposing any kind of draconian measures. So
well, I tend to think too, because he's a successor to the apostles, he's going to stand a pretty heavy judgment on the day of judgment. And so I suspect, I don't speak for him, but I would suspect he would rather say before the Almighty, I did this because I thought this was the best and right thing to do for safety, rather than not do it. I think most of us would rather be in that position.
Right, and then like we hear from people here, people are depressed. You know, they've been cut off from Mass, they've been cut off from the Blessed Sacrament, they've been told to stay home, all their freedoms are being cut off, you know, and then the bizarreness, abortion mills are open, liquor stores are open, McDonald's is open, Walmart's open, so it seems that the most essential things, life, faith, community, prayer, you know, was shut off, but things which are so worldly, oh, that's fine, you can do it. So I think, you know, there's legitimate understanding of why people are coming at it from these different perspectives. But
absolutely. I heard something today, not unrelated or maybe unrelated, a little bit about the Little Sisters down in Richmond and their cases back in the Supreme Court. And the Mother Superior said something effective, we cannot do our job in the ministry of caring for the dying, holding hands, when we're being pulled in another direction to support the destruction of life. You know, and that's a beautiful way to phrase it. I think both groups, you know, those who have public health concerns and also religious freedom and other constitutional issues, both have legitimate rights and concerns.
Right.
And on some level, it's very difficult. I'm not in the know. I don't think maybe you're a little bit more than most of us, but trying to balance concerns of public health and freedom and rights, that's a tricky thing. And, you know, probably not everybody's going to be happy with the decisions you make.
Well, and then, right, exactly. And then you look, I mean, the extreme examples, you know, Charles Borromeo shut down churches for 2 years.
That's right.
And the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic,
right.
You know, these are the two big precedents of this happening. But given our culture, it's a certainly legitimate read. Like, whoa, we suddenly stopped our life for this
Yes.
invisible virus. What is that all about? So I think there'll be ongoing discussions, coming out of this. But we got more people here joining us. Michelle's here. Anne Marie says shorter masses would be the best. Less time spent in the crowd. Exactly. Christina Marie's here. Lori says yes. Take out the singing. We'll reduce it. Claire says if people are worried about getting sick, there's always the option of staying home. Absolutely, and we're going to encourage people.
Yep.
Right, there is risk when you go out in public. There's always some level of risk, and if you're in a vulnerable group, when you've talked to people, Guillermo, I mean, are they indicating they're going to stay home, or they're not sure, or people are worried about getting sick, or anything like that?
I think that's actually I'm kind of anxious to see how the first week we open church is going to work, because I do think that there's going to be a percentage of people who are just going to stay home because they have the dispensation and they have the fear of getting the virus. So I think, but I think in general, the people I run to in the church are people who are probably going to come out because they come to adoration
and they want to receive the Eucharist. Let's see. Diane says, plus get rid of the pews. LOL. Yeah, Diane. Lori said that. Lori, I don't know if we can get rid of our pews. It'd be hard enough to space people.
Yeah, really.
Michelle says, what about car masses? We'll see, Michelle, if the bishop gives any directive on that. Right now, with the churches opening at 50% capacity, that's way better and earlier than we thought. We initially thought there was going to be phase 1 starting May 15th, and then phase 2 would start later, and that only at that phase 2 would they slightly increase church numbers. So the fact that on the 15th, we're going to 50% capacity. I think because the numbers are going down in Virginia, at least here. I haven't looked in detail at the other states yet.
There was a recent study, I heard this on the radio, I think today, but it was probably from yesterday, about states that had started quarantining late and have begun opening up. And their numbers are actually considerably less than they thought they would have been.
Well, Florida's a big difference versus New York.
Governor DeSantis, yes.
They closed later.
It's mostly
opening
3 counties.
Earlier, and they targeted their help with seniors, with the senior centers, with the patient protective equipment, the testing. Also again, Florida, there's a lot of sunshine. Get people outside, because the indication seems to be that staying inside makes your immune system go down.
It does. There was also a doctor in California who was talking about this, said, in part, our bodies, it's about immunity. Mm-hmm. It's about germs. When we were kids, all of us, I likely assume Guillermo was a little bit younger than us, but
just a wee bit.
You go out and play in the dirt and rough it up. I mean, you wash, you take a shower, you put on clean clothes, but you recover.
You eat dirt.
Yeah, exactly.
It's healthy. Right.
So it's not going to kill us. And some people, I've even heard some people say now with the constantly the antiseptic and hand stuff that's not good either. Now, I'm not a doctor. I defer to doctors. I'm no expert in that area, but to some degree, if you stay in and keep wiping down surfaces, we might. Some doctors have heard say we could be compromising our immune system a little bit.
Let's see here. Lori, were you going to say something?
No.
Lori says, yeah, but at Walmart, your personal card is cleaned or you are Cloroxing them. That's true. Diana says, thank you, Father. Well said regarding seniors. Claire said, have you ever made s'mores in your fireplace? Yeah, Claire's a great question. Claire, this is our fake fireplace. We have not made s'mores. We can get fake heat out of it. I mean, it actually warms up. I don't have the heat on right now, so Guillermo won't fry over there. But we haven't made s'mores. However, we have a fire pit out that we put in a couple years ago, and I am committed to having s'mores at the fire pit. Let's see here. Lori says, if you have like 125 spots available and you start letting people sign up for them online, maybe don't post all the spots available. That way people who walk in haven't signed up, you can reach or seat them. Yeah, the dilemma, I don't know, Lori, I don't know yet. We'll talk about it this week because not everybody uses online sign up. And so we typically have 3,000 people come on a Sunday. So if you sit there and say, oh, Mrs. Smith, you signed up. Here's your spot. Oh, you didn't know about sign up. You want to come in? No, you can't come in. I mean, so part of the challenge is like if we have typically 5 masses, and again, if we have the 6th mass, if we have the Latin mass every Sunday now, instead of just once a month, then people who would come to the Latin mass are going to come to the earlier mass. So that opens up some more spaces. But we've thought about sign up. We just, we're trying to scramble to get this figured out because how you're going to manage that many people. Some people aren't technologically based, so I'm going to tell them, yeah, sorry, you can't sign up, you can't come. But I don't know, maybe we have to make that decision. We just haven't come to that conclusion yet. Let's see, Claire says, many are angry the bishop shut everything down. Well, in many places the bishops did. I mean, one of the things that I wish Bishop Burbridge would promote himself more, and he doesn't, is in Arlington, we didn't shut everything down. Now, granted, no public masses, and certainly can have disagreement with that, but we have open churches and we have anointings. Both Father Holmes and I have anointed COVID patients now. We've anointed people in just regular situations. We've had baptisms. Deacon Guillermo's been doing baptisms too.
I was actually I got a phone call from one of my formators at Mount St. Mary's, and I was telling him that I was doing baptisms, and he was shocked because he's from another diocese.
And
they're not doing that, yeah.
No, and I think in a lot of places, right, we've had weddings here, fathers had funerals, we've had burials at the cemetery, that's the one thing I feel like the chancellor should scream. We're doing these things. Now, granted, it doesn't take away from the fact that right now we haven't had public mass. But in many places, you're right. Now, granted, I don't know what those bishops are facing, but when they shut down everything, you can't even go into your church and pray.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like a lot. I don't know what their rationale is.
It seems almost draconian. I know you had talked about this weeks ago, that there are some bishops that are trying to say now you cannot even receive on the tongue.
And they can't do that.
That
church
is
law
absolutely not,
right.
no bishop can ban communion. That's not permissible.
And Bishop Burbridge is not going to ban communion on the tongue.
No.
And so, you're right. There's a lot of reasons to be frustrated. I can see now as an administrator in a parish, when you're trying to figure out how to do things, I can only imagine writ large at the diocesan level when you're responsible for 500,000 people and you're worried about their health or whatever, what those factors that come into play. But let's see. Claire says, amen, preach it, Father, big government is the worst. Okay, here we go. Father Randy Sly is here. Father, we haven't seen you in a while. I hope you're doing well. Brian Baldwin's here. Claire says, I have to go soon, but I do hope you let us know if you've ever made s'mores in your fireplace. We haven't, but I love s'mores. I'll buy fake ones. Christy's here. Diana Mann says, have seen, so grateful for our bishop's love and prudence for his people. Patricia, send pictures as you progress. Yeah, that's right, and we'll be streaming our masses too. Bob says, we should rightly be suspicious, but we have to exercise caution in opening as we don't want to cause harm if they're right. Damon is here, our neighbor. Damon, hope you're doing well. Claire says, our world has been ruined by statists and dictators. Well, I think people, especially in America, are going to push back, because I have a feeling, I don't know what you think, Father and Deacon, I think that, late May, mid-May, as things start to open up, early June, I think people are just going to push back, as we'd like to say. I think they're going to be going out, they're going to want to purchase stuff, they want to get together with people. You see these protests going on. I think there's going to be a contrast. Some states are trying to everything, and other states, people are coming out. So either they're going to move, they're going to relocate, or there's going to get tension because other places are allowed.
I think it was the governor of Ohio, I believe, don't quote me, but I think it was Governor Mike DeWine, who also is a Catholic. It was interesting, I heard him on the news, I think it was yesterday, and he said, some people are saying I'm pushing too fast, other people are saying I'm not pushing fast enough, so, I don't know. Again, trying to achieve the balance of public health versus religious freedom and other freedoms, it's just very difficult.
And then I think, too, there is this tendency with some people to suddenly exercise all this government control.
Right, just shut everything down.
And say, oh, sorry, you can't come out of your house, you can't do this.
That's not really dealing with the problem.
And it's also an abuse, I think, of the power.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Let's see here. Let's check out some of our other ones here over here. Hang on.
I mean, the governor of Michigan comes to mind. I don't know if she's Catholic or not. But...
Joy says, hi, Father, it's Bruce. Okay, so Bruce is showing up through Joy's Facebook page.
Oh, wonderful.
Hi, Bruce. Wherever your better
Bruce
half
has an old Model T or something.
He's
also.
got some good old vehicles, that's right.
He does.
Paul Menardchuk Jr., Rambler, cool, yep, I had a Rambler. Mandy says, I was born and raised Catholic, left the faith for 13 years, had my first confession in 13 years a couple weeks ago. Woo!
Oh, how wonderful.
Congratulations, I cannot wait to receive communion. I will probably cry. I think a lot of people are going to be crying, honestly, getting back to church. They're going to be really happy. Go figured, I decided to come to the faith during quarantine. Way to go, Mandy. Joy says, are you planning to use live stream in the future once the restrictions have been lifted? Yes, Joy, we are going to live stream left and right. All the masses, all the time. We just got to figure out, we're going to have like the sacred minister of live stream who's going to have to and click.
If we could just like push the button, I'd be willing to do
Right,
that.
Exactly, totally. Joan says 7:30 is our mass. There are a lot of seniors who attend. That's right. At our early mass too, we do have a lot of seniors.
Yeah, you do.
Suzette says God is in control. There we go again, reminding us. Maybe we pray for wisdom for all our pastors to work through these tough decisions. I think I'm just going to go to the beach and I'm going to leave Deacon and Father Holmes in charge, and they can figure out what they want to do.
Well, it was interesting because today I was hearing like the recommendations about reopening are coming from the Thomistic Institute of the Dominicans in Washington.
Yes,
so
it's
they're the
very
ones.
good.
They're the ones that, and they've
They
got
develop
doctors
some-
and
yeah.
immunologists and virologists,
Yes.
all kinds of specialists. So they're good guys, and you can absolutely trust them. They're solid.
There you go, complimenting the Dominicans again. Joy or Bruce or Joy says, are you going to continue the chats in the future? Yes, we are. We're going to chat your head off. Let's see here. Lori says, are there mandatory masks? I don't know, but I don't believe so. I think it may be encouraged and that people can wear masks, but I don't think it's going to be required.
I think if someone feels like, hey, if it makes other people feel comfortable, I will wear a mask.
I think
no
part
one's
of
going
it
to
is
say anything about that.
I think it's this different argument. You hear some arguments that wearing masks hurts your immune system. Other people say wear masks because you're not spreading the virus. So I don't know the answer to it. I think on one level, I think if they require it, you're going to run into some real issues. I think people may wear them, and I think we should be fine with that. Some people may choose not to, but let's see. Claire says, makes it more likely you will get sick. Let's see. Bob says, I'm in New York. I'm encouraged that you are going to be able to reopen in the Arlington Diocese. Yeah, Bob, I think that places around the country, the states that are opening up, counties, like the bishop pointed out that in Virginia, and I'm really grateful to the governor that he's doing this, that the first phase is opening May 15th. Now, some local jurisdictions may choose to stay more closed. I'm glad he took that approach rather than saying everything's closed and we're going to do limited reopenings. Mm-hmm. I think it's better to say, look, across the board, counties are open. If your county is particularly affected, we are going to, you can limit there. Because like if you look at it's Fairfax County, Prince William County, Arlington, Alexandria, a couple of places where they're really hit. We've had one death from COVID in Frederick County. I think we've had a couple, maybe 100 and some cases. But I think as the testing continues, the number of us who've all been exposed is going to go up. But I think it's going to show the death rates even lower.
Well, I think one of the, obviously the principle in social justice and Catholic teaching is the principle of subsidiarity. So, the local, in loco parente, so to speak, the local people who are in charge should know what's best. Someone dictating either, now the governor is ultimately elected to, we have to respect the law and obey the legal officials. But people who are dictating from Washington or from, way away, they don't know the local conditions.
Right. There's only, again, it's part of the practical dilemma. Like, how do you have, what's an effective way to have commandments or policies in place that can be realistically universally applied?
Yes.
And that allows for subsidiarity and allows for local decision. Because if a county has very few cases, versus, Fairfax County has 3,000 some cases in Virginia.
Wow.
In terms of just positive cases. It's like, do you treat them the same? I would think not. Because a case kind of that's healthier or not been so affected. Let's see here. Peggy says, I feel it may be safer to get communion in the hand rather than on the tongue and risk contact with saliva. Any thoughts? Well, I would argue that on one level, Peggy, you have the right, canonically, to receive in the hand. There's a couple of things. The hand tends to be dirtier. At the same time, too, some people bring up the issue that communion or the virus is spread, from breathing or the mouth or whatever. You have the right to receive on the tongue. And as a general rule, a priest or a deacon, or in the case of an extraordinary minister, if they're well trained, they have the ability, carefully, with love, to place the host on the tongue without contacting the person. As a general rule, when you're giving out communion, you're not getting licked, by the person. And over time, you get better at it. Now, I think what's going to happen is there may be some instructions as far as sanitizing, so that if a priest or a deacon or an extraordinary minister thinks that they've been in contact with the person's mouth or tongue, that they'll be able to purify their fingers in some kind of a lavabo bowl, which is the dish, and then they could use the hand sanitizing gel and then resume. There's different prudential opinions on this, but as a general rule, I always feel like as priests, I don't know, Father, your thoughts, or Deacon, I think we have good immune systems because we are constantly getting in contact with people at communion. You know, there's the occasional being licked or whatever, or contact with the mouth. Or after Mass, some little kid comes up and they're picking their nose and they shake your hands, or people give you hugs, or someone sneezes on you. So we're always exposed to people's germs.
I mean, the thing is, I find, and I like to generally shake hands after Mass, but I shake so many hands, and I'm sure you do too, Father, and Deacon also. Like sometimes you don't want to be, too drunk, but you shake someone with a clammy hand, and
right.
and then you feel like, oh, I gotta go wash my hands,
Right.
So when you've shaken literally dozens of hands or hundreds, who knows what's on your hand at that point.
Right.
But again, I think common sense. We can wash our hands. We can use the Purell. If we're concerned, you say, look, just elbow bump or fist pump or whatever, and hi, God bless you.
We do a lot of elbow bumps right now.
Yeah.
Zonia's here, Laura's here, Anna joined us. So Lori says, right, that's why I'm saying save spots for people who haven't signed up. The only difficulty, Lori, is in order to have all these reserved sections or controlling who's going to sit where, you need like an army of volunteers. You need an army of people to say, and now this is me being over dramatic, yes, you can sit there, no, you can't sit there. And so practically speaking, when you have a church like St. Mary's in Fredericksburg or here, where you can sit 700-800 people, generally we don't have 10 billion ushers to begin with. And then now trying to find people who are going to be able to say to people coming back, this part's for elderly or this part, whatever. We're going to discuss this week because we don't really know, because it seems to me you've got a policy that's implementable. It's got to be kind of general. It's got to be careful, but I mean, the more complex it gets, you're going to have to say only this wing, like only that section. But again, if there are people, like how are you going to know? We have the main entrance, we have a side entrance, and are we going to supervise police? Did you sign up? Did you not sign up? So I think this is where it's going to get kind of tricky. That's where I kind of tend to think that we looked at the capacity of our church, and then the narthex, and then Muldowney Hall, the church hall, and then I thought at that point we could also, worst case, say to people, tune into this radio station in your car, or go on your phone, and you can follow the Mass that way. And then when the Mass is over, you can come up. But so we're still looking here. Claire says about the question about communion in the hand. She says touching people's hands is a lot germier than putting the Eucharist in someone's mouth. I mean, basically, I think the general impression in our culture is that communion in the hand is somehow better. And with all due respect, from the public health experts, it's not clear that's the case. I mean, when you give communion in the tongue, you're not sitting there like sticking your finger and touching their lips. You're placing the host on the tongue. And so there is a legitimate question about, are you transmitting it this way? So I think what they've looked at as protocol we could do to purify the finger, wash the hands if you feel there's been contact. But as a general rule, when you touch, if you're putting the host in someone's hand, you're touching their hand. And their hands have tons of germs. So, because the big thing that they've said over and over and over again is wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. So if we are placing the host in someone's hand, there's also a good likelihood that you're exposed to germs there. So
I have to say, Father, I've been washing my hands, so I feel like my hands are going to fall off.
Your skin's gonna fall off, right?
Seriously, that's all I do every time now, so it's probably not bad, but...
Martha says, we've been so blessed. My sisters in California have not been so blessed. Laura says, definitely understand the why, but it's hard to not get down. No, it's totally easy to get discouraged. Monica is put 3 hearts, she's happy. Michael's here. Claire says, I gotta go. Thank you for caring. Grateful for you. Claire, good to see you. Hang in there. Don't let the sons of guns get you down. Dale's here. Laura says, thanks for such faithful, wonderful shepherds that you are. We are here to harass you and to try to help you. Christina Marie says, Father Holmes, I am thinking of becoming a taxi driver so I can have a mansion in heaven.
She heard the joke, it's great!
Loved your joke during tonight's homily. Tell the story.
Okay, so the readings today kind of talked about edifices and mansions and this and that, and building things. So I heard this joke.
I'm listening, I'll be right back.
It's an old joke. So 2 men die and they go up to the pearly gates, and St. Peter picks them up in his taxi cab. And so St. Peter, one's a priest, Catholic priest, the other one is a taxi cab driver. And so the first one, they get to their mansion, or they get to their little room in heaven. Everyone has a room in heaven. And so it's like St. Peter's or the Taj Mahal. And so St. Peter says to the taxi cab driver, says, "Sir, this is your room. This is where you're going to live forever." And so, so he gets out and goes in, and St. Peter, so the Catholic priest like, "Oh man, if he got that, what am I going to get?"
Right.
So St. Peter then brings the priest to his room, his little mansion, and it's like, it's a little mud hut with a corrugated tin roof and no running water, no electricity. And so he says to the Catholic priest, "Father, this is your room." And so the Catholic priest like, "St. Peter, are you sure we're in the right place?" "Yes, Father, we're in the absolute right place." "Are you certain you didn't make a mistake?" "No, Father, I know I didn't make a mistake." It's like "St. Peter, I don't understand. I did baptisms. I married couples. I celebrated the Eucharist. I heard confessions. I anointed the sick. I buried the dead. I ran a parish and raised millions." It's like, how could that guy have gotten a mansion? I've got a little mud hut. I said, "Well, Father, when they got in his taxi cab and he drove, they prayed. And when you preached, you put them to sleep." That's an old one, but it's kind of cute.
So you've encouraged the taxi driver.
Yes, don't drive, just drive carefully. Be careful.
Let's see here. So Bruce, we are going to continue the chats in the future, and let's see. Our daughter, who's a nurse, is taking care of 27 corona patients.
Oh, God bless
Please
her.
keep her in your prayers. So everybody, let's pray for Joy and Bruce's daughter, and all the nurses and people in the front lines. Because again, Father Holmes is over at the hospital, and I've been there, and you see these people who are in the ICU, and they're dealing with that. So we got to pray for them.
I mean, I had a thought the other day, the first one I went to visit who was COVID positive, and I gotta be honest, the first thought that popped in my head was, I don't wanna go.
Right.
And then I thought, I gotta go. So
Right.
then, when I pulled into the parking lot, the other thought was, well, Lord, if this is the
I'm gonna
end,
die.
if
Right.
this is the end, please show mercy. At least I went to someone that was dying, so.
Right.
But, please God, I hope it's not my time yet. And look, we are not gonna deny sacraments no matter what. We're not. We have to be obedient to the bishop. We have to respect lawful authority, Romans 13. But we also have the right to worship, and we're moving in the right direction, I think.
Guillermo, Deacon Guillermo, we have a message from YouTube for you.
Oh.
Danny says, "Saludos, Guillermo, un fuerte abrazo para todos." So do you know who Danny is?
I probably do, but
Okay, well.
just by name, I don't know.
All right. So we're praying for Joy and Bruce's daughter. Her name is Elena.
Oh, God bless
Okay.
Elena.
Patty says, 50% allowed, maybe alternating Sundays for parishioners for now. Well, Patty, I'm going to honestly, we're going to talk this week about our possibilities. I mean, worst case scenario, we could do the church, the narthex, the church hall, and the gym, and have streaming in those places. And beyond that, the fifth option is people could sit in their cars and watch it on their phones or listen on the radio. I'm kind of curious to see what the actual turnout's going to be, because between 6 masses on a Sunday, I think that people might just kind of selectively, some are going to stay home for now, other people are going to kind of come out, and we'll stream it. And I think people at home who might be cautious, like I've got a compromised immune system, I'm over 60, or I'm really concerned about, cleanliness. If they can see people on the camera at Mass, how it's working, I think people will start to kind of come out of their houses. And again, we'll look at the numbers.
And I think, there's two things to figure there, Father. It's like, how many can we physically put in the church with social distancing, and then how many might be willing to either be in the narthex or down in Muldowney Hall or in the gym, and just, if they'd be willing to watch the live stream, and then we
Right.
could give them communion maybe after Mass.
Right. So I think we'll see how it goes. I think some churches that are smaller, or some churches that are really massive, we only have about 10,000 parishioners only, but other places have more. So
Deacon, do you have a sense of this is Hispanic community and what they may do? I mean, you think?
I don't know. I mean, we've been getting together every Thursday night, and with some of the people from the Hispanic community, we've been talking about it. I think, just like in any other community, I think some of them won't come, some of them will come, and when they come, we're all gonna make the effort to.
I think it's going to work, because I think
Yeah.
what we'll do is with Hispanic community too, just like everybody else, we'll have like a team of leaders, and we'll get the
Yeah.
word out. Here's the way.
Yes.
This is the protocol, because these same people, when they go to the store,
Yeah.
or when they go to the hospital, or they go anywhere, they're following that. I think we can do it, because I think you said, I think people initially are gonna be gun shy. I think they're gonna probably tend to stay home. And then as it warms up and as the numbers get better, and they say, look, it's safer to go out, I think, it's gonna work.
And I guess there's something unnatural about us not interacting with each other, not touching each other,
Yeah, it's strange.
but we have to realize that at
For
the
now.
end of the day, for now, we have to make an effort and not.
And it's a
shake hands and all
temporary
that.
thing, because it's, again, we don't know. I think we're gonna get more data and science and like, okay, how is this being transmitted, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time too, I think, again, I tend to think people are gonna get tired of being cooped up for 2 months. It's gonna be 2 months, and they're gonna say, we've gotta get out. And the weather's warming up and kids are graduating.
Years ago, I think this was back in the 80s or 90s with, was it Czechoslovakia, I can't remember where, Nicholas Ceausescu, who was a dictator. And they literally had state-run orphanages where the babies were locked up in cages.
Oh wow.
And they suffered from what was called, the doctors or nurses will correct me, but I believe it was called marasmus syndrome,
Okay.
which is either lack of vitamin C or B12 or one of the vitamins D. Anyway, so the babies, because they didn't get this, and also they weren't being hugged and picked up and cuddled and
Right.
held like a normal,
Which develops our immune system.
which helped,
Right.
yes, and they actually lost size and weight, and they were failing, lack of thriving, because they were basically being caged up,
Right.
not properly getting the proper vitamins or whatever they needed, but also they weren't being picked up and held.
Right.
So getting back to the Deacon's point, we're social people, yes, we need to be careful, yes, we need to observe social distancing and boundaries, we don't want people to get sick, but at the end of the day, we can't go on like this indefinitely.
And we're gonna take good steps. And we're
Yes.
gonna take smart steps, and the bishop's collecting all this wisdom from all these different sources, lay people, medical experts, pastors, all this stuff. And people, we're gonna give them information to make prudent decisions. And again, I think, thanks be to God, overall, at least in Virginia, the numbers seem to be going down, and I think people are gonna kind of emerge. People need to be with each other, right? Like you said,
Yes.
they need contact. Let's see, Bruce and Joy say, how's your custom mask working out? Thank you, they sent us a custom mask. He said, love to see all three of you with your masks on. We could do a show with our masks
We
on.
should do that. I think we're like bank robbers holding up something.
Let's see here. Laura says, Saturday would have been my first communion here. My daughter is so sad. Totally. But at the same time too, like we're trying to figure out how we're gonna do first communion, how we're gonna do baccalaureate for the 8th graders, how we're gonna do our RCIA sacraments. We're looking for Easter, for the Pentecost vigil for that. So I think it's been delayed, but just think about it's been delayed. It's still gonna happen, it's gonna be great.
Tell Lori to look up the story of Blessed Carl, K-A-R-L, not C-K, Leisner, L-E-I-S-N-E-R, Blessed
Okay.
Carl Leisner. And he was the only priest, at least to the best of my knowledge, I could be wrong, we got a big audience here. He was secretly ordained in a camp in World War II by a French bishop, I believe, and he only lived long enough to say one mass. One mass. Camp was liberated in 1945 by the Americans. He went to a hospital, he was dead in 6 months. He never said a second mass. One mass enough to make you a saint. One
Boom.
communion.
Let's see here. Catherine says, priests will cry too to see people again. We will. We're
Yes.
going to be happy. I think everybody's going to be happy to be back together. We're going to appreciate the Eucharist more than ever and the Holy Mass. Diana says, from the nurse, masks do not do anything negative to your immune system. Okay. Michael is here. Diana says, protect others. Masks protect others from you. Remember, it's estimated from experts that 50% of COVID are 50% are COVID positive. Diane says, patients have no symptoms. Yeah, I mean, again, I think the thing is, I think we've been swimming in this, surrounded by it.
Yeah.
Christy says, what if tongs were used to distribute communion? That is a good question, and I think during the plague there was something similar to that. Right now,
What was it, Tom?
like using tongs, like if you had to give
Oh.
communion like that way.
Oh, like
Because you can use tools to distribute the sacrament. For example, I went to the hospital to anoint somebody who was COVID. And I used this method that a priest friend of mine was doing in dealing with this. And other priests have done this. So I took the cotton ball and I dipped it in the oil of the sick. I put it in a small Ziploc bag and sealed it. It hadn't been used yet. Then that was in a bigger bag. So I go to the ICU, I leave the bigger bag out with the nurse station, and then I went into the patient's room with another nurse, and then I had the prayers. I borrowed the deacon's, because it was a Hispanic family, I borrowed the deacon's book. I Xeroxed the prayers, I made copies. So they were paper copies that I left in the room. I wasn't going to take back with me. So then I said the prayers, I had the mask, I had the gown, gloves, the whole deal. And then for the anointing, you're allowed to use tools in this administration of the sacrament. So I took the cotton ball out of the bag and I anointed the forehead and the hands. And then I put the cotton ball with the oil that had been exposed back inside the little bag. We sealed that up. Finished all the prayers, everything. And then when we left the room, the patient's room, they had a special area that was for contaminated stuff. I put that bag there. Meanwhile, I opened up the big Ziploc bag. The nurse took the contaminated one, put it inside it. I sealed it up. So then went back to the rectory, and then outside I had a little burn pit, and we burned the bag along with some other things. You know, so the cotton ball, everything got burned. So when you have the sacred oil, you can't just throw it away as a general rule.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, yes, the idea of using tongs to give out communion is an interesting question. Right now, on a popular level, I don't know how you would do it, but it's a good question.
I know in the past, now, if you go to, I believe, if you go to a Byzantine liturgy, so I could be wrong, they use something like a spoon because the host there, it's like a little cube, it's leavened bread, we use unleavened.
Right.
But I don't like, even in the past, what I've done with people who are close to dying or have difficulty swallowing, I would break off just a tiny piece of the Eucharist, very small, and put it on a spoon, mush it in a little bit of water, and kind of pour it down, and purify the spoon, burn and destroy the spoon or something like that, you know, or throw it out.
I mean, like, could there be a scenario like that down the road? Maybe.
Yeah, we don't know, but you know, there are. I think even Pius XII, I was told this. I'm not certain, but Pius XII would use a straw to sometimes consume from the chalice.
Okay.
Yeah, now that's not something I've ever seen, but maybe he did that. He had health issues at the time. Don't know, but.
Deacon Guillermo, we have Mauricio here on YouTube. Father, I prayed a lot for the country. El Salvador is very difficult. Please pray. Please, Father, pray a lot. So we're going to pray for the situation in El Salvador. All right, here we go. Keep going here. Lori. Well, it depends on if you have acquired software that does it for you. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Like the one I sent you is using software. It's figuring out the best seating, like when you get to play tickets. Staff just have to seat them. I agree, it might be easier just to say first come, first serve. Yeah, the problem with all that is if you're going to reserve spots, you've got to have somebody who's going to check all that. You know, because like you can't just say, oh, I reserved that spot. Well, if you did, great, but the person who shows up who didn't use the software, they don't know that. They sat in your spot. Oh, I reserved that. So you're going to have a war over this spot, you know. So part of the dilemma is either we need to say the only way you can sit here in the church is if you use the online registration system. But even then, it's like controlling the doors and saying, have you registered? Let me see your registration. And so that's where I think it's going to get really complicated, because if you're going to have a system online, I'm not saying it can't work, where you use Sign Up Genius or something, you have to have some enforcement mechanism, or else you made the reservation, you know you're supposed to have this seat, and then suddenly this other family shows up who didn't know about the registration system, and they sit down and you're like, well, that's my spot. That's where, you know, unless you have this strong centralized system, I don't know, you know, some parishes could use it. I'm not saying all parishes couldn't.
I know there was a priest of the diocese, I don't want to mention his name because this priest is still active, but in years past, what this priest used to do at his Christmas midnight mass was give out certain a number of tickets.
Yes, right.
And but then whatever the number was, that was it, you know.
And something like that though would work, like if we could say, in the normal context of Mass, at our announcements at the end of Mass, in the bulletins, we could say online, 3 or 4 different ways, we're going to give out tickets for Christmas Mass. Everybody would know about it. We'd have a system in place. The problem right now is you have people who rely on the bulletin. Well, they don't get the bulletin right now.
Right.
We could mail them a bulletin, but it's a question of this has got to go out this week. We could, these different technology services, a sign-up thing, a Facebook thing, or whatever, you're hitting them from different angles. So part of the challenge is trying to figure out how do we have an enforceable method.
I fear that someone is either going to show up or not show up, and then you got to say to them, you don't want to be, look, you can't have that seat, that's reserved for someone else, or you got it, you should have been here, sorry, you lost a seat, then it's like,
and then
that's the
you're
last
turning
thing
them
you
away.
want.
And so I think
I just have I would have
Right.
almost nightmares about that.
Right. Now Michelle says another logistical issue will be some won't want to receive communion, and usually those are going to receive squish in front of them in their pew to get to the aisle. I would think a whole lot of people will not receive, so how will they maintain social distance? Michelle, I think what's going to happen is right for the near future, communion will be distributed after Mass. So what will happen is Mass will end, people will have to leave their aisle or their pew for the aisle. Now, don't nail me down this because I don't know yet. We'll see what the bishop's final instructions are. But so like when Mass is ending, everyone's leaving their seat, and then someone's going to exit and leave. Someone else is going to get in line for communion, and they're going to come up. So you're right, because you're right. If you're sitting there saying, I'm not going, and then Father Lumber comes in front of you and rolls you over, there's no social distancing, so it's a mess.
Yeah, and I feel like the first week we actually open the churches, it's going to give us a lot of answers for a lot of questions that we have.
Right.
Yeah, how many people are we going to have in Mass? Are we going to need to have more spaces for people? No, I mean, because we don't really know if the number of people that are going to come.
And although we certainly, I think, provided someone's in a state of grace, we want them to receive, but you're not obligated to receive.
Right, you're not.
And if someone's not comfortable, you get up here, take communion.
Right. Sharon says, can there be public masses without distributing communion? Yes, there can. Can you suspend that for a while? I don't know if that's what's going to happen, because on one level that is an option where you could say initially we're just going to have masses with no communion. And so part of this is waiting to see what the bishop's directives are. He may give parishes the freedom to do that. He may say communion right now is after Mass. They might make some, I don't know. So it's theoretically possible that we could just have Mass and not give out Holy Communion. Again, it's part of the deal. There's a lot of variables and moving parts, because someone comes in expecting communion, someone else comes saying, I'm not expecting communion. Oh, well, I want to receive. Okay, I don't want to receive. Again, so we'll see. Ursula just got here. Nick is here. Lisette is here. Mark Schlomer's here. Stan is here. Karen is here. Ursula says, I'm concerned for now and might stay home until I feel safe. We need to wear masks and never shake hands again. Remember, I've never shaken hands since nursing school. Fauci wants us to scrap the custom. You're great. Thank you. Ursula, I don't think the sign of peace is going to happen anytime soon. And it's not required, and you don't have to do it. And I think people may wear masks for protection reasons, positive and negative. I don't think it's going to be required to wear masks, but I think it's going to be fine if people want to. So yeah, things like, I think what's going to probably end up happening is we're probably going to take all the missals and the hymnals out of the pews. There's still not going to be holy water. There's not going to be the sign of peace. We're not going to bring the gifts up at the offertory time. So anything that's a moving part, where there could be contact, and so when Mass ends, of course, then we got to go and wipe down, the hard surfaces. Part of the dilemma, like Diana Mann brought up earlier, I mean, the cleaning process raises a number of questions, which is like, we have cushions. What can you do reasonably to try to clean those? Things like that. So, Marion Vanderwood is here. Kimberly's here. Mary Wheatley, Karen Hepner, John Rickard's here. Lori says tongs are happening in a diocese somewhere. Yeah, I'm just curious how it's working. Kathy's here. Mary's Thompson, just told Kateri that soon we will. Good. Wanda says, and there are those who don't have internet access. Exactly. Gerard's here. Bob says, yes, Father Holmes, a spoon and flung into the mouse is done when the hosts are intincted. I'm not exactly flung, but maybe placed. Mm-hmm. Lori says, you have to let me know what system you are using. Yes, these places doing this are making staff man it, LOL. Like they do check your registration or they are seating you, no self-seating. Right, and I mean, on one level, it depends on the size of your parish. If you only have a couple hundred families, that might be really doable. It's just our problem is you have, 6 masses with about 500 to 600 people a mass with, a couple entrance points. And, are you going to track everybody? Again, and part of the thing is if we're trying to make Mass, if you will, reverently, but done efficiently, so people come in, we celebrate, they leave, we do communion possibly, we clean, then the next batch is coming in. It's like we need more Masses so more people can come in. But we need plenty of time in between Masses so we can clean. And then we need to have a check-in system so you know where you're going. And then we have to have somebody enforce the check-in system. So this is where you feel like saying, we're gonna have no masses, and no one's gonna come, and no communion, and no nothing. And that's where it's kind of one of the things you realize, okay, there's only so much you can realistically do.
It's a logistics, it could be a logistics nightmare.
That's why I'm thinking, you know, if we can do overflow seating in the entrance area a little bit, down in Muldowney Hall. We did this for Christmas. For the first time for Christmas Mass, we had a live stream downstairs, and we had seats set up. And then we could also do that in the gym. We could have spaced out, we could put tape on the floor, and you know, you could see where you're gonna sit and all this kind of stuff. And again, I think people honestly are gonna have goodwill. I think people are grateful. They wanna come back to Mass. Those who will come, we will be willing to follow reasonable instructions. So I think we're gonna try and see, you know, and I think what I am gonna do is, I might have the rosary led before every single Mass, because I think the Blessed Mother's gonna go, and she's gonna like arrange everything and make it all work. Because
I think each person has to both pray and discern in their heart. Do they want to just come and be present at Mass and maybe not receive? Others who want to be present and receive after Mass is over. And that's, again, I think, as long as we're following reasonable instructions, observing boundaries, social distancing, and trying to be sensitive to everybody as best we can.
Yeah.
I think it can be fine.
Lori says, okay to Eucharist following Mass. Interesting, makes sense for flow. Father Bresnahan is here. So Father says, oftentimes people already have their seat, so there's kind of a natural seat selection. Right. The difficulty is that everything is up for grabs in the quarantine church. Trisha is here. Mary says, I deleted that comment because my phone hates me. What I was trying to say was that I just told Kateri she will be able to go to Mass at the church, and she got a huge smile on her face. It will be great to see Kateri and everybody again.
Absolutely.
Lori says, see, I thought it was more the mega churches doing the online reservations. I think we just aim for controlled chaos. Ha! I'm with you, Lori. I think it's going to be controlled chaos here.
I like that. Controlled chaos.
This is the story of Father Lundberg.
That's our life here.
Everybody works with me and for me has learned to work with controlled chaos.
Father is the designated survivor.
Joy says, okay, we covered all that. Patty says, glad to hear you are thinking of utilizing the other areas on campus. Great idea. Thank you guys for all you've done for our parish families. We are working hard. Glad to help you. All right, so what else? Father, any deep thoughts? Anything you want to talk about?
Well, I think, you know, the streaming seems to be very positive, and I think we should reassure people that we will continue to do the streaming even once we get back to Mass. You know, I also, just as a bit of a side note, I also agree that, I mean, I've heard stories, I know you have, I'm sure the deacon has, about diocese. I mean, I've talked to people on the phone, at least one I know for sure in Florida.
Right.
They won't even let you go pray in the church.
I
They
know.
totally
You
close
can't even
nothing.
go to church. The church
Absolutely.
is locked.
Yeah, so
I mean, we got
that
people going to adoration.
that seems
What a
draconian.
nightmare
That
that would
seems
be.
draconian to me, like don't even show up. So I mean, although the bishop, I think, truly lamented having to close the churches, I really believe that, because I think he's a good man. And I think he really wants to reopen the churches, but I think he's trying to do his best. I agree with you. I think he should spout his own horn a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's a pretty humble guy.
Right. He's not
You know,
gonna
so
go
God
say,
bless him, because
look
in the
how
end,
great I am.
well, I think in the end the truth will come out, and if it's not in this life, it'll be in the next.
Right.
And I think it's a great time for us to pray for our pastors, because when this whole thing exploded, I had a lot of ideas. I mean, I was like, we can do this and we can do that and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But then I had a conversation with you and I realized, well, I'm thinking for myself. And that's great. I mean, I'm not a pastor, so I can just think for myself just like everybody else. But you're a pastor and you're in charge of everybody else, so that's part of your burden. I mean, it's not an easy job. And even more with the bishop. I mean, so
I know.
we need to pray
We have
for
one
him.
parish.
Right. He's
One
got
parish.
70
And he's got 70
75.
parishes. I mean, and then, again, too, in defense of people who are really burnt out and angry and frustrated, they feel like, where are our pastors? Where are our shepherds? They've abandoned us, they've shut the churches down, you know, and I mean, that's a real experience.
I truly worry, and I mean this seriously, no joking, that there are people whose faith maybe are weak, they've been hurt in the past, abuse or just bad preaching or yelling at confessional, whatever.
Right.
The whole, and more, or, sloppily celebrated masses.
Right.
And they just figure, this is just one more straw that breaks, I can't take it anymore. And I really worry about it. I don't want people to leave.
Right. Well, and again, I think that, God willing, someday in heaven when we know everything, we are on one level to understand. I think a lot of people who had to make decisions about schools and churches and public facilities were worried that this was a virus that was going to get people sick and they were going to die. And so for the sake of helping people, they kind of kicked into their, field trip mode. And they said, okay, you stand over here and you stand over here and don't do this and don't do this. But then people were like, I need Jesus and I need to pray and I need to go to church and who are you to tell me this? So it became this, confrontation between freedom and the church and faith and the sacraments which we need versus somebody who's trying to help present disease. And so the bishops were stuck in the middle of this. Because every indication I've gotten from the chancery is, when the bishops communicated with us is, he worries about people's health. Not that that's the only thing, like you pointed out before, he wants to save souls, he's apostolic. But, worries about people's health, he worries about transmission of a virus in a situation like that. So they're trying on the fly to make decisions based on all this incoming data and incoming science and this anecdotal stories and all this stuff. And then what do? And then the people are like, why would you make these decisions? Why would you close us off? Now, thankfully, again, in our diocese, that wasn't the case. He kept church open, masses later, and church opened all the time. Again, gratefully, we're starting May 15th. I can't believe it's going to be 2 months of this, 8 weeks of this. It's just like 3 or 4 weeks ramping up to Easter and then now this. So I think part of it, it's like, what's the perspective I'm coming at? If I'm already concerned that the state is growing in its power, that secularization is weakening the faith, the church is under attack, there's all the scandals. Like you say, people may say, this is it, I'm leaving. You didn't care for me. So I think that's what's driven us here at the parish. We and other people in the diocese have been driven by, how can we help people? How can we provide services? No, you shouldn't watch streaming Mass online. It totally stinks. It's totally boring. It's hard enough to go to Mass in person, let alone watch us waddle around on a camera. But, but it's an effort. It's just an effort to do something. And then these chats and the drive-through confessions. I mean, someday we'll have a cocktail after this is all over and say, can you believe all the stuff we did? And the team.
In God's providence, I think sometimes we don't always see all the bad we do, but he also doesn't let us see perhaps all the good we do. And I know, I've heard stories, I'm sure you have, about survivors of the Holocaust. I've heard stories where 2 kids were in the camp and the mother shoved the kid one way or the father shoved it, and that kid survived because that parent paid the ultimate price. So people are willing in difficult times to make heroic sacrifices.
Totally.
And God bless the people, they have had to make a sacrifice. And
totally.
God knows in your heart what's true and real, and God will bless you.
Right. Let's see here. We had some other things I missed here. Where we go?
I gotta go.
Yes, sir, thank you. Our hardworking deacon who does all the work, he's gone over.
Father, what are we going to do when he leaves?
We're not thinking about that right now. Everybody pray that the deacon either stays here or that we get another priest. Let's see here. There was one here. Where did it go? I found this one. Suzette says there are people who aren't techies. They might not know how to sign up online. Lori was saying the sound cut out at one point. Mark Schlomer says, Father, we could cut out 50% of the weekend masses and all cram into the other 3 masses and satisfy the 50% rule. Well, at one level, that would be great. It would make it easier for us in terms of the number of masses, but we still have to cover the intentions. But then we'd have all these social distancing rules we're violating. Let's see. Laura says, you guys have a lot on your plate. Yeah, tell me about it. Anybody else we're missing here? So Lori says, sounds like you think you'll just seat self with people distancing themselves and just take advantage of overflow plus car. Yeah, I mean, for now, we're gonna have meetings this week, and we're gonna look at what the directives come from the diocese, and then we're gonna look at our options, because on one level, between the gym, I mean, if, we don't normally have 800 people at Mass, but let's say we did. If we went between the church, the narthex, Moldanian Hall, and the gym,
We could get them all.
plus people in their cars, we could
Yeah.
totally cover people.
Yes.
So in that sense, there's enough ways to say you can space. And that way it's more kind of first come, first serve. Let's see here. Chris?
And I would hope too, the bishop will, and I think, I'm sure you will, Father, because you know him better than I do, that he'll give general policies with, each local pastor to adapt to circumstances on the ground as needed.
Right, totally. Chris says, praying for holy death is good, having fear of hell is healthy. Do not be afraid. Totally. We don't want to be afraid. We want to be prepared well. Lori says, I love Bishop Burbage. And Michelle says, no question. All of the responsibility must be heavy. Praying for all of you guys and our secular leaders. Thank you. That's totally, we got to pray.
However imperfect our government is, there is no perfect form of government, but
who wants to be managing this mess?
well, pray for our leaders, because, Romans 13 does, calls to that. But beyond that, we still have a democracy. If you don't like someone, vote them out of office.
Right, if you don't like the way they handle this,
we've got a ballot box every 4 years or 6 years or however often Tuesday. Get informed, make the best decision, pray about it, and vote in the person who is virtuous, who you think is actually going to serve the people. Remember, they work for us. We don't work for them.
Right.
They work for us. We've
Right.
forgotten that.
Right. Lori says, what did you all have for dinner? Where is the food chat? Also, I want to know how Father Holmes likes your McDonald's there compared to our McDonald's in Fredericksburg.
Well, I actually had a little bit of fries today, which I shouldn't have had. but actually, for dinner, I had kind of breakfast. I had eggs and sausage. I had some tuna fish and whatever. I basically leftovers. It was fine.
We should do a food chat. That'd be great. We could do dinner with the priest.
And we had salmon yesterday. I love the salmon. There's a little bit of salmon left.
Well, Peggy says, thank you for these chats. Appreciate it. Thank you for all your hard work. May God bless you. Kimberly Ann says, we are all in this together. Thank you, fathers, for your love and wise leadership. Thank you for this forum. It helps us to know we're not alone. Very good discussion. Praying for you all. P.S. Thank you for nightly adoration. You're welcome. Dwayne just joined us. Thank you for being here, everybody. And sorry that the adoration at night's been inconsistent, but we're working this week, God willing, to get adoration back online in our chapel or at night. We're looking at some options that our adorers can come back for the night adoration, and that we can have a camera on that so that people can adore from their home, so to speak.
And I like that we're all in this together. We don't exist without them. They need us. We need each other.
It's like a basketball team with a couple overweight basketball coaches. Let's see. Suzette says, Jesus, I trust in you. Patricia says, I still appreciate you wobbling around giving us mass. Hey, we're here to wobble for you. We are. That song, The Wobble, isn't so good, but we're here to wobble in a good way. Laura says, I wish we could bring you meals. Well, right now, we have a good cook, and obviously we're not starving to death. We have good food, but we're trying to do keto, and Father Holmes has been very faithful to it, which has been great. And I've got to get back on the wagon. But let's see here. So, very good. It's almost 10. Father, you want to lead us in a... well, hang on a second. We've got one more comment here. Trisha says, jumped in late tonight, so I'm not sure if this topic has been mentioned. Will everyone be required to come as normal? No, no one is required to come. The dispensation was still... The dispensation from coming to Mass is still in place. Your obligation to attend Mass on the Lord's Day and Holy Days is still suspended. So no one is required to go to Mass right now. Other than those who are elderly or immunocompromised, the dispensation's in place for everyone. I've talked to a few Catholic friends, and I don't think they're going to feel safe coming anytime soon. They're already worried about this because they don't want to be in a state of sin. So very clear, if you continue staying home and watching Mass online, or observing the ways that you make the Lord's Day holy in your home, you don't have to watch Mass online, then you're fine. There's no obligation in the Diocese of Arlington. You are free from the obligation to go to Mass. You still have to keep the Lord's Day holy, so you can't, not do something. You got to do the readings or pray the rosary, maybe go for a walk, maybe if you can, go to visit your church. But so no one is in a situation where they're bound under the pain of sin that they have to come to Mass. And again, at the end of the day, if anybody really is genuinely concerned about their health or something related to this, and they don't go to Mass out of genuine, authentic concern, they're not committing a sin either. But right now, everybody's dispensation is still in place. So everything is suspended. So coming this Sunday, the 15th, no one is required to come back to church. And I agree with you. I think more people initially are going to stay home because they're still leery. They still have genuine worries, and that's okay. And then the nice thing is you'll be able to see the church. We'll stream the Mass online. You'll be able to see people at church, so that'll be good. Andrew's here. Lori says, do you know I am keto? I made chocolate mayo cake today and bourbon chicken. That sounds very delicious. I have never heard of chocolate and mayo cake.
Interesting.
So that sounds good. Bob from New York says, one thing I noticed here is, one thing I noticed here in New York is that the pastor of a small Melkite parish is that his routine didn't really change. He's always worked from home, unlike me who had big changes. Yeah, some people, their schedule this is a continuation of what they already worked. For some of us, it's a disruption.
Well, and also, to be fair, not to make any critical statements or judging, but the Melkites, the Maronites, and some of these other Byzantine rites that are in communion with the Holy Father and with Rome, their liturgies are beautiful, their customs and traditions are wonderful, but their parishes are pretty small, considerably smaller than us. For the most part, again, and locations vary, but they don't have mega parishes.
Right.
They also, interestingly, have a married clergy.
Right.
Which also, so they have a slightly different, I would assume, rectory or living arrangement than we do. But so there are some differences there, and yeah, if it's a smaller parish, maybe they could still have daily divine liturgy with social distancing.
Right, and they don't have daily Mass.
They usually don't either. Even the Orthodox who are right across the street don't have daily liturgy.
Right. Martha from the cathedral says, did you see the pig they had at the cathedral for Father Christensen's birthday? Yes, so Father Chris Christensen had his birthday, and they had this barbecue, and they had this pig.
Wow.
They had like a pig roast, and it looked quite delicious, and yes, I did see the pictures. Mark says, I think so many are increasing their faith during this time. This is Mark Schlomer. And returning to Mass will be such a wonderful joy. I agree with you. Now is an opportunity to deepen our faith. I can't wait to be able to go to Mass again, but absence makes the heart grow fonder. Thank you for what you're doing to keep our faith lively. No, Mark, I agree with you too. Any thoughts?
Go to the Gospel of Matthew. It's either chapter 12 or 13. The pearl of great price and the treasure buried in the field. They're eschatological parables. Now, traditionally, you can look at them as God's relationship to the Jews, God's relationship to the soul. I wrote a paper in seminary where I used the parable as an image of marriage. But I think here we could also say that the pearl of great price, the treasure buried in the field, obviously it's God, it's Christ, or faith maybe. To us as priests, it's our flock.
Yeah, totally. We don't want to be by ourselves.
We don't want to be here.
We're ready to kill each other.
Hopefully not. We don't like this. We don't want this. This is not.
We can become priests to sit in the rectory by ourselves.
This is not natural for us. We want you back. We just want you to be safe, and to whatever extent you can feel comfortable. But so again, every family needs a father, and a mother too.
Right.
Father Lundberg, he's the father of this parish. He's responsible. And we try to work with him, but we need each other. If you meditate on that parable, I think you can see in it. You could see it as a relationship between the pastor and his flock too.
But I think too, like Mark was saying, I think for a lot of people, we're so busy running our lives, going to work, raising kids, sports, school, all these things. And so Mass is part of it, and faith was part of it, but you just sort of knew, okay, well, I'm going to go to church on Sunday, how are we going to squeeze that in, whatever. And suddenly you're like, I can't go to Mass. I can't receive the Blessed Sacrament. I can't physically be in church with more than 10 people. What is going on?
A lot of it, I think, and I've said this to people in the confessional, it's a loss of control.
Yeah.
There's another good book to read. I'll make a plug for a book, Romano Guardini.
Yes.
It's either called Power or Responsibility. But look up Romano Guardini, and he talks about the proper use of power and responsibility. True power is not to wield a sledgehammer to swat a gnat. It's to have the power, but to wield it gently, as if it's almost not even felt.
And to do the right thing, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. another brilliant comment from Father. I guess some superficial thing.
Oh gosh, please.
Lori says, that looked like amazing. What a birthday for Father Christensen. Bob says, he misses not having us there, though. That's his biggest change, his pastor. Absolutely. Teresa Schultz is here. Teresa, we had Father Schultz out here earlier to help him with confessions. Suzette says, Father Christensen was in my youth group at Our Lady of Angels.
Nice.
Good job. Lori says, okay, so someone local needs to get the ultimate guide to keto baking for you when you need treats. Best baking book out there and has lots of recipes. Gold star. Okay, good. We need it.
Send it to us.
We're wasting away to nothing. Suzette says, so was Father Eisenberg and Father Zach Akers. That's right. Suzette, you had quite the youth group between Father Christensen, Father Eisenberg, and Father Akers. I think you did pretty well. You need the gold star. Peggy says, Prince William County has a high coronavirus count. It does. It's like the number 2 in the state. Do you think they will have mass here next weekend? It's a little bit more intimidating here. I don't know. I mean, I tend to think yes, because Prince William County is kind of spread out. I bet you they're not going to limit, but what do I know? I don't think they're going to limit the churches. Let's see here. Now, Joan says, I've heard from a friend in Woodstock that Father Dobbins, who was a former priest here at Sacred Heart, or somewhere, is ill. Do you have any information on him? We'll keep him in our prayers. Yes, Joan. Father Holmes is... Father Holmes is doing great.
Father Dobbins.
Father Dobbins is doing very well. I just saw him the other day. Now, yeah, so a couple things. They found out, he had this mass in this tumor in his lung, and so they did the
biopsy, I guess.
Biopsy and all that, and they found that. So it was stage 4, which obviously is horrible, and they started him on 2-part treatment. They did chemo and they did immunotherapy. And so he worked through the system of chemo. He did the rounds on that, and that ended, and his immunotherapy has continued. And he just told me the other day, his tumor has shrunk by 80%.
Wow.
So keep praying. So that is really, really, really good news. So Father Dobbins is doing great. He's just as funny as ever. Great sense of humor. And his tumor is down 80% in size. And he's doing the immunotherapy. And the goal is to get to a point where his own immune system can kick in, and keep fighting it on its own. But so far, it's working great.
And Joan, you never want to put Father Dobbins and Father Lundberg together, because it'll be like the Marx Brothers. You will never stop laughing. Trust me.
We make Father Dobbins make us laugh and make Deacon Guillermo do all the work. So, anyway, we're now, it's 10:06. We've been doing this for about
an hour
and a half, and we've had a lot of nice visits, and good questions, and so far so good. God has taken care of us the whole time. We've had drive-in confessions, we've had drive-through stations, we've had drive-in adoration, we've had adoration at night, though that's been inconsistent. We have adoration at church during the day. We've had baptisms, we've had weddings, we've had funerals, we've had anointings, we've had COVID anointings. We've had lots of LaCroix. We've had a good glass of wine for the poor deacon. We usually have bad wine here, but we finally got a good bottle of wine for him, thanks to our wonderful parishioner who brought some more LaCroix and some good wine. And it's been great. Mark Schlomer says, great news about Father Dobbins. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely, that's great news. And Ursula says, great news regarding Father Dobbins. Catherine says, God bless you all. You too, Catherine. Keep up the good work. You're fighting on the front lines for us. Bob says, good night. Ursula says, good night. Joan says, thank God, prayers work. That's true. So now I will have Deacon do a closing prayer, and Father Holmes will do the blessing.
Great. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
We ask Our Lady in this month of May to protect us and to help us go through this difficult time, and help us realize that although we are suffering, she is with us and Jesus is taking care of us. So let us pray in the words of Our Lady. Hail Mary,
full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. And may the Lord bless and keep you. May he turn his face to you. May he let his countenance shine upon you. May he fill you with his peace. May Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Woohoo! All right, everybody. We will see you at least next Wednesday. Happy Mother's Day to everybody,
And pray for all mothers who have passed.
right? And also, I guess the next time we'll see a bunch of you is next Saturday or Sunday with Mass.
Could be a man.
Please don't run anybody over. And,
And don't run us over either,
and
please.
wash your hands and say your prayers, and Blessed Mother will take care of us. And don't forget to bring your checks to drop off in the collection thing, and keep the bills on, the lights on here. All right, we'll see you soon. And yes, we'll keep